So biomedical engineering is a vague field. A lot of people understand what it is and they know that we work with medical devices, but they don't really understand what goes on within the daily life of a biomedical engineer. What does a biomedical engineer actually do? People from within the field, people who are about to graduate, and people from the outside don't really understand what we do as biomedical engineers, how our days look like, and what type of roles, jobs, or niches can we follow or go through when we graduate and when we actually want to start our professional biomedical engineering careers. And that will all end today, hopefully. We're going to be looking at a bunch of different ideas, a bunch of different concepts, a bunch of different niches, and a bunch of different paths and roads that you can take as biomedical engineers after we explain what biomedical engineering actually is, what we actually do, in order for us to clear the vagueness and the uncertainty about the concept or term that is biomedical engineering. So as you can see in front of me over here, I am on our dear platform, BMEs, the world's first biomedical engineering operating system, our biomedical engineering learning institution that we have spent 2+ years working on. Everything that we are going to be showing is directly from the platform, and more specifically from the Intro to Biomedical Engineering course out of our 22+ course curriculum, alongside different stuff that we will look at. So firstly, what is biomedical engineering? Now, as you can see, you have a biomedical engineer in front of you designing a specific body part as an implant from what it looks like. Also, you have different images showing you what biomedical engineers actually do. So we service medical devices, we build medical devices, we work in R&D when it comes to medical devices, and so on. So now let's dive specifically into chapter number 1 and into these two illustrations from the chapter. So what is biomedical engineering? Biomedical engineers do a couple of different things, a lot of things actually, but they are basically confined within this illustration in order for us to be able to understand and grasp the concept in its easiest form. So as biomedical engineers, we design, develop, and test all aspects of medical devices and surgical instruments. So basically anything and everything that you see in a hospital when it comes to equipment, usable medical devices, whatever it is that you see in a hospital has been developed, designed, and tested by biomedical engineers. We also demonstrate the operation of these equipment that we have designed, tested, and basically developed to medical professionals and personnel via a biomedical engineer that is either a clinical engineer, that is a biomedical engineer working in a hospital, or an application specialist, which is a biomedical engineer most of the time that basically is experienced and has expertise in a specific medical device, and they basically train the medical personnel on how to use the medical device. We also work with cross-functional teams in order for us to be able to test prototypes, and we analyze every single failure which happens in the clinical workflows of hospitals, every single failure which happens in any medical device, and we basically do corrective and preventative maintenance or actions as written here in order for us to be able to respond to the customer complaints, in order for us to have a smooth sailing clinical environment. And as you can see here, we work in lab environments, so we report research findings through scientific publications, oral presentations, and formal documents. So this, in a little quick nutshell, what biomedical engineering actually is and what we do as biomedical engineers. Just know that we work with medical devices and everything when it comes to the medical technology industry. Medical devices, we have implants, we have rehabilitation devices, we have prosthetics, we have biomaterials, we have instrumentation devices, and so on and so forth. Everything that you see in a hospital environment has either been made by a biomedical engineer, had a biomedical engineer helping in the making of it, or is being monitored and basically tested and always in the sights of a biomedical engineer. So if we move on to the Q&A part, what kinds of devices do biomedical engineers design? If we want to go more specific when it comes to this specific point, everything from prosthetic limbs and cardiac pacemakers to surgical robots and wearable biosensors. We also design implants like artificial joints, dialysis machines, and even diagnostic equipments like ECG and ultrasound medical devices. And this is a nice segue in order for me to take you to our medical device library to show you the vast amount of medical devices that we work on as biomedical engineers. So biomedical engineers work on a bunch of different devices. Here in our medical device library, we have basically around 70 medical devices. So if you are a biomedical engineer, you don't know what you want to do really after you graduate, or if you're about to become a biomedical engineer, if you're someone who is about to start studying biomedical engineering, this is for you. As you can see over here now, obviously this is our medical device library, over 70 devices deconstructed in multiple different sections, over 1,380 different explanations and so on. The first in the world, whatever it is, this isn't what we're talking about today. So as a biomedical engineer, you can specialize in any one of these medical devices and you can immerse yourself fully into them. You can work on surgical robots and specialize in surgical robots, MRI, PET, computed tomography, ECMO machines, cardiopulmonary bypass, positron emission mammography, SPECT scanners, intra-aortic balloon pumps, mechanical ventilators, anesthesia, transesophageal echocardiogram medical devices, intravascular ultrasounds, intraoperative neurophysiological monitoring systems, magnetic controlled capsule endoscopy, hyperthermia, and the list goes on and on and on. Peritoneal dialysis, pacemakers, cerebrospinal fluid shunt systems, cochlear implants, vagus nerve stimulators, and so on and so forth. The list is actually endless of the medical devices that biomedical engineers have created. The options are basically limitless when you want to become a biomedical engineer. So now that you have looked at what biomedical engineering actually is in a nutshell, let's look at some different parts of biomedical engineering which you can niche down and go into from the second illustration, which is over here. So the fields within biomedical engineering. So obviously we have a bunch of different fields within biomedical engineering that we can go into. As I said, you can go into medical devices. You can also go into medtech sales, so selling medical devices. You can go into import-export trade, so moving these medical devices around the world. You can go into R&D, which is research and development. You can work in lab environments and so on and so forth. Or you can become a more specific type of biomedical engineer that specializes in one of these fields. Now, biomedical engineering isn't limited to only these fields. There are a bunch more, but these are, let's say, the main 5 that have job opportunities, besides specializing in actual medical devices. And as we said, selling medical devices or moving medical devices all around the world within import and export trade. So you can go into biomechanics, bioinstrumentation, medical imaging, biomaterials, and cell and tissue engineering. So when it comes to biomechanics, it is basically the study of forces and motion as they relate to the human body. So you basically, as a biomedical engineer, you apply the principles of mechanical engineering to understand musculoskeletal functions, joint movement, and the mechanical behavior of biological tissue. Now, why is that important? Because as a biomechanics specialized biomedical engineer, you play a key role in prosthetic design, orthopedic implant development, and physical rehabilitation technologies. Secondly, you can focus more on bio-instrumentation, wherein you basically focus on the development of devices that measure every single physiological function. So think ECGs, EMGs, EEGs, wearable health devices, and so on and so forth. You specialize in all of these devices that give physiological signs. Now, if you want to go to medical imaging, and it is one of the most famous, if not the most famous and widely sought after field within biomedical engineering, you basically design and enhance the technologies that allow clinicians to be able to visualize the internal anatomy and functions. So every single medical device that is a diagnostic medical device. So every single imaging medical device, as we have seen in the medical device library, you can go into modalities like X-ray, MRI, CT, PET, SPECT, positron emission mammography, magnetic controlled capsule endoscopy, ultrasound, and so on and so forth. Then you can move on to tissue engineering, as you can see here. Now, tissue engineering, biomedical engineers or biomedical engineers that work with tissue engineering or in tissue engineering environments rather, they basically aim to grow or regenerate biological tissues. And this is done using scaffolds, stem cells, and growth factors. So they work in order for them to be able to regenerate biological tissue. And then finally, you can go into biomaterials, which is basically the science of designing materials that interact safely and effectively with the biological tissues. So basically, in a nutshell, meaning that any single piece of equipment such as orthopedic implants, polymers, ceramics for dental applications, hydrogels for drug delivery, and so much more, they all need to be designed in a biocompatible manner with perfect biocompatible materials in order for them to be implanted and inserted within the body. And this is the work of biomaterials specific specialized biomedical engineers. So let's look at a little Q&A in order for us to be able to understand even more. Can someone or can a biomedical engineer specialize in more than one subfield? Absolutely. Many biomedical engineers work at the intersection of multiple areas. Let's give you a little example. Someone developing a cardiac implant might need knowledge of biomaterials, as we said, because it needs to be biocompatible because it's being implanted within the body. Also biomechanics as well, because they need to learn how the body actually moves and what the body actually needs, and also instrumentation such as ECG in this example, electrocardiography, in order for us to be able to measure all the vital signs and so on and so forth. So now for these 5 different fields that we have talked about: biomechanics, cell and tissue engineering, instrumentation, medical imaging, biomaterials, and so on and so forth, I'd like to take you through every single one of the courses structure to get an outline of basically what you're going to be working with, or what you're going to be doing, or the topics that you're going to be immersing yourself in as a biomedical engineer who decides to specialize in one of these 5, let's call them main broad niches within biomedical engineering. In different videos, we're going to be talking about them specifically and about a bunch of different domains and niches which you can go into. But firstly, let's look at biomechanics. As you can see, joints, human motion, torques, forces, and so on and so forth. So looking at the image gallery, let's just read and see what we have and the actual topics in order for you to get an idea of what you're going to be working with if you decide to become a biomechanics specialized biomedical engineer or a biomechanical engineer. So you're going to be studying linear and angular kinematics a lot. You're going to be working with linear motion, work, energy, and power. You're going to be looking at the mechanics and qualitative analysis and the fundamentals of that. You're going to be studying anatomical definitions and the muscle structures, muscle movements, and the skeletal muscular system is extremely important to you. Bone physiology, bone fractures, structures and mechanical properties of joints, mechanics of the cardiovascular system, where you're going to be going into a bunch of different details such as the cardiac output, blood pressure and the vascular resistance, heart mechanics and blood flow, the hemodynamics, and the actual cardiovascular system and how it works, heart mechanics, the phase of pressure, the volume loop, stroke volume, cardiac output, and so on and so forth. And then finally, going to be looking at fluid mechanics, biomechanics of injury and rehabilitation, and a topic which is near and dear to me, which is human motion analysis, which is what I am actually completing my master's in, which is basically master's in bioengineering with a focus on gait analysis and biomechanics. So you're going to be looking at the human motion capture techniques, optical motion capture, overview of human motion capture, kinematic and kinetic data analysis, and so on and so forth. So this is basically what you're going to be doing if you want to specialize within biomechanics. Secondly, if you want to specialize in bio-instrumentation. So with instrumentation, we said all the physiological signals, as you can see over here, and all the medical devices that actually give physiological signals. So you're going to be looking at a bunch of different things such as sensors and the working principles of sensors. You're going to be looking at bioelectric potentials, potential electrodes, and so on and so forth. So we're going to be looking at electrode placements for ECGs, EEGs, needle electrodes, electrode skin interfaces. You're going to be looking at surface electrodes, and so on and so forth. You're going to be looking at biopotentials, amplifiers, and their various types. You're going to be looking at blood pressure and heart sound measurements, blood flow and volume measurements, and so on and so forth. And now moving on to medical imaging. As you can see, this is where you work with every single medical device that is a diagnostic medical device, an imaging medical device that helps image the human body and give doctors images and results that are able to diagnose every single disease. So we're going to be looking at a bunch of different things and a bunch of different medical devices. You're going to be looking at nuclear medicine imaging. You're going to be looking at SPECT, PET, magnetic resonance imaging, CT, magnetic controlled capsule endoscopy, and so on and so forth. You're going to be looking at X-ray production, X-ray tubes, X-ray generators, and so on and so forth. The cathode and the anode configurations, anode angles, field coverage, focal spot size, Heal effects, and so on and so forth, filtrations, attenuations, and so on and so forth, system designs such as CT system designs, tube ports, mammography, X-ray tubes, and so on and so forth. You have a bunch of different things and a bunch of different devices to go through when you want to specialize in medical imaging. And now moving on to cell and tissue engineering. This is where you look at a bunch of different things, such as engineering biomaterials for tissue engineering. You look at the biology of stem cells. You look at cell motility and tissue architecture. You look at fluid shear stress effects on the cellular function. You look at regeneration templates. You look at bioactive scaffolds, stromal cells and their importance, tissue engineering of the bone and skeletal muscle, tissue engineering of the liver and the cartilage. And if we actually go into it in order for you to see how interesting this is, you look at biomaterials in liver and cartilage engineering. You look at cartilage tissue engineering. You look at the mechanical simulation of cartilage tissue engineering. You look at cartilage repair. You look at liver regeneration, and so on and so forth. Extremely interesting tissue engineering. So moving on, we're going to be looking at biomaterials. If you want to specialize in biomaterials as a biomedical engineer, this is the specialty wherein you work on creating biocompatible materials that are able to enter the body. Whether it is looking at the mechanical properties of biomaterials, looking at the cell interactions with or of biomaterials, looking at the protein interactions with or of biomaterials, looking at the surface properties of biomaterials, the degradation process of biomaterials, the immune response to biomaterials and their effect on thrombosis, which is basically blood clotting, and so on and so forth. And finally, I added another one that is worth talking about, which is clinical engineering, and potentially one of my favorites, if not my favorite. In clinical engineering, you are basically going to be learning how to control and work within a medical flow of a hospital. So you're going to be learning every single piece of equipment within the hospital, but from a different standpoint, obviously from a biomedical engineering standpoint and a healthcare standpoint, but you're also going to be looking at clinical equipment management. You're going to be looking at how you can acquire new technologies and life cycle cost analysis. You're going to be looking at safety performance of medical devices. So you're studying medical devices and the clinical workflow of hospitals from a business aspect. You're going to be looking at quality improvement for clinical engineering and the workflows, the JCI standards and risk management when it comes to clinical workflows and medical devices, the codes, standards and safety regulations and protocols, adverse events and recalls, standards for clinical engineering, patient safety, medical device risk management, and all the certifications and so on and so forth. So as you can see, biomedical engineering is a very wide spectrum of niches. It's a very wide spectrum of things to do, and it has a bunch of different fields that you can go into. There is always room for specialization and room for taste within biomedical engineering, meaning that you can specialize in a lot of different aspects and niches. So there's a place for everyone, and that brings us back onto our lovely illustration which we have started with. Just think of biomedical engineering as designing, developing and testing all aspects of every single medical device that you see, and working in the medical tech industry, and then demonstrating these medical devices, selling these medical devices, working in lab environments, publishing researches, working with teams to test prototypes, working in research and development of medical devices, moving these devices all around the world, and so on and so forth. And this, in a nutshell, is what biomedical engineering is. Now, if you have actually gained a bit of knowledge and you have actually understood what biomedical engineering is, and you feel more confident either as a biomedical engineer or as someone who wants to start their biomedical engineering journey, then I highly recommend that you check out the BM Essential platform. You check us out over at bmessential.com, the world's first biomedical engineering learning ecosystem and operating system. Think of it as the world's first and only biomedical engineering specific university, where we have courses, 22 course curriculum that we have just looked through. We have our first in the world medical device library. We have a bunch of different AI tools and a lot more. This is your hub and your home as a biomedical engineer. You won't regret it. Check out your free trial, 7 days free preview and experience of the platform. No strings attached, no credit card, no nothing. Just try and experience the platform for yourself. I'm sure that you'll get hooked, and I'm sure that you'll continue using it because it was built for myself, by myself and my team, and then we decided to actually publish it to the world and to make it a full-on company in order for us to be able to help and impact as many biomedical engineers out there as possible. So thank you. I appreciate you for joining and attending, and I'll see you in the next one.